The Principality of Catalonia is a historic territory and a medieval and early modern political entity in the northeastern Iberian Peninsula, mostly in Spain, with an adjoining portion in southern France. Between the 13th and the 18th centuries it was bordered by the Kingdom of Aragon to the west, the Kingdom of Valencia to the south, the Kingdom of France and the feudal lordship of Andorra to the north, and by the Mediterranean Sea to the east. The first reference to Catalonia and the Catalans appears in the Liber Militionis de Gestis Pisanorum Illustribus, a Pisan chronicle of the conquest of Minorca by a joint force of Italians, Catalans, and Occitans. At the time, Catalonia did not yet exist as a political entity, though the use of this term seems to acknowledge Catalonia as a cultural or geographical entity. The counties that would eventually make up the Principality of Catalonia were gradually unified under the rule of the Count of Barcelona. In 1137, both the County of Barcelona and the Kingdom of Aragon were unified dynastically, creating the Crown of Aragon. But Aragon and Catalonia retained their own political structure and legal traditions. Because of these legal differences and their use of different language, Aragonese and Catalan, an official recognition of the Catalan counties as a distinct political entity with its own institutions, laws and political community became necessary. Under Alphonse the Troubadour, Catalonia was first used legally. Still, the term Principality of Catalonia was not used legally until the 14th century. When it was applied to the territories ruled by the courts of Catalonia. The term Principality of Catalonia remained in use until the Second Spanish Republic, when its use declined because of its historical relation to the monarchy. Today, the term is used primarily by Catalan nationalists and independentists to refer collectively to the French and Spanish-administered parts of Catalonia. History of Catalonia. Like much of the Mediterranean coast of the Iberian Peninsula, it was colonized by ancient Greeks, which chose Roses to settle in. Both Greeks and Carthaginians interacted with the main Iberian population. After the Carthaginian defeat, it became, along with the rest of Hispania, a part of the Roman Empire, Tarraco being one of the main Roman posts in the Iberian Peninsula. The Visigoths ruled after the Western Roman Empire's collapse near the end of the 5th century. Moorish Al-Andalus gained control in the early 8th century, after conquering the Visigothic kingdom in 711 to 718. After the defeat of Emir Abdul Rahman al-Ghafiqas's troops at Tours in 732, the Franks gradually gained control of the former Visigoth territories north of the Pyrenees, which had been captured by the Muslims or had become allied with them, in what is today Catalonia under French administration. In 795, Charlemagne created what came to be known as the Marca Hispanica, a buffer zone beyond the province of Septimania, made up of locally administered separate petty kingdoms which served as a defensive barrier between the Umayyad of Al-Andalus and the Frankish kingdom. A distinctive Catalan culture started to develop in the Middle Ages, stemming from a number of these petty kingdoms organized as small counties throughout the northernmost part of Catalonia. The Counts of Barcelona were Frankish vassals nominated by the Carolingian emperor, then the king of the Franks, to whom they were feudatories. In 987 the Count of Barcelona did not recognize Frankish king Hugh Capet and his new dynasty, which put it effectively out of the Frankish rule. Then, in 1137 Ramon Berenguer V, Count of Barcelona married Petronilla of Aragon, establishing the dynastic union of the County of Barcelona and its dominions with the Kingdom of Aragon, which was to create the Crown of Aragon. It was not until 1258, by the Treaty of Corbeil, that the King of France, as heir of Charlemagne and the ancient Frankish Empire, did formally relinquish his feudal overlordship over the counties of the Principality of Catalonia to the King of Aragon, James I, descendant of Ramon Berenguer and heir of the House of Barcelona. This treaty turned the de facto independence into a full de jure recognition of the Catalan counties as constituent members of the Crown of Aragon, whereas the King of Aragon and Count of Barcelona also relinquished any claim over territories in southern France. The treaty solved a historical incongruence, as the counties had been ruled independently for more than 2 centuries. As a coastal territory within the Crown of Aragon and the increasing importance of the port of Barcelona, Catalonia became the center of the Crown's maritime power, helping to expand its influence and power by conquest and trade into Valencia, the Balearic Islands, Sardinia and Sicily. Catalan Constitutions. The first Catalan Constitutions are of the ones from the Catalan courts of Barcelona from 1283. The last ones were promulgated by the courts of 1705, with the King Charles III. The compilations of the constitutions and other rights of Catalonia followed the Roman tradition of the Codex. These constitutions developed an advanced compilation of rights for the whole population of the Principality, limited the power of the kings, and even the Constitutio de l'Observació established the submission of royal power to the laws approved in the Catalan courts. The General Court of Catalonia, dating from the 11th century, is one of the first parliaments in continental Europe, and the current Parliament of Catalonia is considered the symbolical and historical successor of this institution. Catalonia. After the Middle Ages, the marriage of Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon unified 2 of the 3 major Christian kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula, while the Kingdom of Navarre was incorporated later following Ferdinand II's 1512 invasion of the Basque Kingdom. This resulted in the reinforcement of the concept of Spain, which was already present in the mind of these kings, made up by the former Crown of Aragon, Castile, and a Navarre next to Castile. In 1492, the last remaining portion of Al-Andalus around Granada was conquered and the Spanish conquest of the Americas began. Political power began to shift away from Aragon toward Castile and, subsequently, from Castile to the Spanish Empire, which engaged in frequent warfare in Europe, striving for world domination. For an extended period, Catalonia, as part of the late Crown of Aragon, continued to retain its own laws and constitutions, but these gradually eroded in the course of the transition from a feudal territory to a modern one, and the kings struggled to get from the territories as much of the power as possible until they were finally suppressed as a result of the War of the Spanish Succession defeat. Over the next few centuries, Catalonia was generally on the losing side of a series of wars that led steadily to more centralization of power in Spain. Despite this fact, between the 16th and 18th centuries, the powers of the Catalan institutions and the participation of the political community in the government of the country were increased, while the king's powers were restricted. Tensions between the constitutional Catalan institutions and the centralized monarchy, alongside the other factors, the economical crisis, the presence of soldiers and the peasants' revolts, caused different conflicts, such as the Catalan Revolt, in which Catalonia declared itself an independent republic under French protection in 1641, but the Catalans were finally defeated. In 1659, after the Treaty of the Pyrenees signed by Philip IV of Spain, the comarques of Roussillon, Conflent, Vallespir and part of La Cerdagne, now known as French Cerdagne, were ceded to France. In recent times, this area has come to be known in Catalonia as Northern Catalonia. Catalan institutions were suppressed in this part of the territory and public use of Catalan language was prohibited. Currently, this region is administratively part of French Department of Pyrenees Orientales. At the end of the War of the Spanish Succession, the victorious Bourbon Duke of Anjou, now Philip V, signed the Nueva Planta decrees, which abolished the Crown of Aragon and all remaining Catalan institutions and prohibited the administrative use of Catalan language. So late as in the 18th and 19th centuries, The Catalonia under Spanish administration benefited from the beginning of open commerce to America and protectionist policies enacted by the Spanish government. Becoming a center of Spain's industrialization, to this day it remains one of the most industrialized parts of Spain, along with Madrid and the Basque Country. On several occasions during the first third of the 20th century, Catalonia gained and lost varying degrees of autonomy. But as in most regions of Spain, Catalan autonomy and culture were crushed to an unprecedented degree after the defeat of the Second Spanish Republic in the Spanish Civil War, which brought Francisco Franco to power. Public use of the Catalan language was again banned after a brief period of general recuperation. The Franco era ended with Franco's death in 1975. In the subsequent Spanish transition to democracy, Catalonia recovered political and cultural autonomy. It became one of the autonomous communities of Spain. In comparison, northern Catalonia, in France, has no autonomy. Institutions and legislation. Institutions. Court General del Principat de Catalunya, Diputació del General or Generalitat de Catalunya, Consell de Cent de Barcelona, Real Audiencia, Conferencia dels Tres Comuns, Junta de Bracos, Tribunal de Contrafacions. Legislation. Usages de Barcelona, Constitutions de Catalunya, Capitals de Court, Actes de Court. Symbols. As state under royal sovereignty, Catalonia, like the other political entities of the period, didn't have an own flag or coat of arms in the modern sense. However, many royal and other symbols were used in order to identify the principality and its institutions. Royal flag of the King of Aragon was often used in Catalonia and other parts of the Crown of Aragon as a territorial flag in the early modern period. Royal arms of the King of Aragon until 16th century. The arms with the common Aragonese crown of the early modern period. St. George's flag, used by the deputation of the General or Generalitat, and its army. St. George Cross as insignia of the deputation of the General or Generalitat of Catalonia. Flag of Barcelona, capital of the Principality, changed during the last times by the St. Eulalia's flag. The term Principality. The Counts of Barcelona were commonly considered the princeps or primus inter pares by the other counts of the Spanish March, both because of their military and economic power, and the supremacy of Barcelona over other cities. Thus, the Count of Barcelona, Ramon Berenguer I, is called Prince of Barcelona, Count of Girona and Marquess of Osona, in the act of consecration of the Cathedral of Barcelona. There are also several references to the prince in different sections of the usages of Barcelona, the collection of laws that ruled the county since the early 11th century. Usage number 64 calls Principatus the group of counties of Barcelona, Girona, and Osona, all of them under the authority of the Count of Barcelona. The first reference to the Principatus Cataloniae is found in the convocation of courts in Perpignan in 1350. Presided by the King Peter IV of Aragon and III of Barcelona. It was intended to indicate that the territory under the laws produced by those courts was not a kingdom, but the enlargement of the territory under the authority of the Count of Barcelona, who was also the King of Aragon, as seen in the Actes de las Cortes Generales de la Corona de Aragon 1362–1363. However, there seems to be an older reference, in a more informal context, in Ramon Muntaner's chronicles, as the Count of Barcelona and the courts added more counties under his jurisdiction, such as the County of Urgell, the name of Catalonia, which comprised several counties of different names including the County of Barcelona, was used for the whole. The terms Catalonia and Catalans were commonly used to refer to the territory in northeastern Spain and western Mediterranean France, as well as its inhabitants, and not just the County of Barcelona, at least since the beginnings of the 12th century, as shown in the earliest recordings of these names in the Liber Militanus. In 1931, Republican movements favored its abandonment because it is historically related to the monarchy. The name Principality of Catalonia is abundant in historical documentation that refers to Catalonia between mid-14th century and early 19th century. According to research carried out in recent decades, is considered to be in the second half of the 12th century when the Catalan counties form a unified and cohesive political entity, although jurisdictionally divided, called Catalonia. This happens because the Counts of Barcelona became the one hand, the majority of sovereigns Catalan counties, and the other hand, kings of Aragon, which helped them prevail in the rest of autonomous Catalan counts, if they were not in the feudal vassals, while also incorporated its extensive domain, the Islamic territories of Tortosa and Lleida. The political entity resulting from this process since the 13th century was repeatedly mentioned, the term kingdom, as a medieval state, i.e. public domain political regime, monarchist government. However, it consolidated this denomination officially, because, for various historical reasons, the rulers of the Kingdom of Aragon never uses the title King of Catalonia. This is where comes in the use of the term principality, since at least since the 12th century, the word was synonymous total term kingdom, which alluded generically political entities which categorize historiographically the expression medieval states. Yet it was not until the 14th century, specifically, since 1350 that, greetings the work of Peter III of Aragon, the Principality of Catalonia became an official and popular name. This political entity was part of some composite monarchies or dynastic conglomerates as the Crown of Aragon, the Spanish monarchy and the Kingdom of France, being on an equal footing with other political communities of the time, or external in relation to such great empires, as were the kingdoms of Castile, Aragon, Valencia, England, or the Duchy of Milan, for to mention a few. With the destruction of the state by force of Catalan ancient regime as a result of the War of the Spanish Succession, the territory being annexed to Castile became a province of the new and more unified Kingdom of Bourbon Spain. But Principality continued to be the name of the territory. As witness the decree of New Plant created the royal audience of the Principality of Catalonia in 1716. This situation remained until the Kingdom of Spain was transformed permanently, despite several Carlist wars, into a liberal state in 1833, when Secretary Javier de Burgos eliminated the province of the Principality of Catalonia, dividing the territory in 4 provinces that still exist. Thus, the term disappeared from the administrative and political reality of the country. Neither the Statute of Autonomy of Catalonia, Spanish Constitution, nor French Constitution mention this denomination, but, despite most of them being republican, it is moderately popular among Catalan nationalists and independentists. Language. Catalonia constitutes the original nucleus where Catalan is spoken. The Catalan language shares common traits with the Romance languages of Iberia and Gallo-Romance languages of southern France. It is regarded by some linguists as being an Ibero-Romance language, and by a majority as a Gallo-Romance language, such as French or Occitan, from which Catalan diverged between 11th and 14th centuries. Catalan is one of the 3 official languages of Autonomous Community of Catalonia, as stated in the Catalan Statute of Autonomy. The other 2 are Spanish, and Occitan in its Aranese variety. Catalan has no official recognition in northern Catalonia. Catalan has official status alongside Spanish in the Balearic Islands and in the land of Valencia, as well as Alguerese Catalan alongside Italian in the city of Alguero and in Andorra as the sole official language. Culture. Traditions of Catalonia. Category: Catalan culture. Category: Catalan literature. Category: Catalan art.